Sarah Clifton had always loved the ocean, drawn to its deep majesty and hidden wonders. Growing up in a bustling city, she would watch documentaries of uncharted reefs and remote archipelagos, imagining the thrill of encountering all the life beneath the surface. As soon as she was old enough to pursue a career on her own terms, she picked up a camera, trained in marine biology, and set out to make documentaries that would shine a light on the ocean's most mysterious corner. Her abiding passion led her across the globe, exploring coral reefs, murky shipwrecks, and the swirling underwater clouds of plankton that sustained entire marine ecosystems. Yet, no matter how many wonders she photographed and shared, she clung to one unfilled dream: finding something in the ocean that would change not just the hearts of her viewers, but her own. This ambition took her to a small village perched on the edge of a rocky coast, a place overshadowed by tall cliffs and battered by relentless waves. According to the stories she'd heard, the village was known for its pearls, fabled to be unrivaled in their iridescent beauty. People whispered about pearls that reflected entire constellations beneath their pearly layers. Sarah arrived, determined to track down the local expert who could lead her to these underwater treasures. Her production team had told her about a particular diver, rumored to retrieve the most exquisite pearls along the entire coastline. Yet no one had gotten him on camera. He was known simply as Harrow, and the villagers spoke of him only in quiet, reverent tones. Sarah trudged through salt-crusted alleyways, her heart pounding. She carried a small backpack with basic snorkeling gear and her prized underwater camera, though she was well aware she might need something more advanced if she truly intended to capture the splendor of these pearls. The houses were brightly painted, though chipped by the sea air, and the small harbor was lined with rough wooden boats bobbing in the waves. Fishermen lugged nets of sea urchins and shrimp, while hawkers sold fresh coconuts and sweet pastries to meager clusters of tourists. The crisp tang of the ocean and the creaking of moored boats reminded her that this world was different, rougher, simpler, and quieter than the big city. She felt an irrational need to tread gently, as though her presence might rustle the delicate balance of this place. Over the course of a few days, Sarah spoke with locals to gather what she could about Hero. They told stories of his uncanny skill for holding his breath, the way he could dive to unimaginable depths without additional equipment besides a single spear gun for defense. Many whispered that he was as silent as the reef itself. Some spoke of him out of fear, warning her that he often vanished underwater before a conversation could begin. Others offered helpful directions, telling her that he lived in a rickety shack on the far edge of the village. Drawn by curiosity, Sarah made her way along a narrow, rocky path that skirted the base of a towering cliff. It felt like stepping off the map. The shack rose from the shoreline like driftwood given new purpose. Its windows were shuttered, but smoke drifted from a small pipe poking out of the roof. She approached the door, her heart fluttering, and knocked. There was no reply, just the rhythmic rolling of the waves and the sharp caw of the seabirds circling overhead. Sarah knocked a second time, wondering if she should just enter. Then a quiet voice cut through the wind. "You must be the storyteller with a camera," the voice said. A moment later, the door opened, revealing a tall figure with strands of salt-stiffened hair. He stood with wary eyes and arms folded across his chest. His stature exuded strength, an echo of the powerful undercurrents he'd no doubt battled. "Hi," Sarah said, forcing a smile. "My name is Sarah Clifton. I'm a documentary maker. I've come a long way to find the famous pearl diver named Harrow." It occurred to her that she might be pronouncing his name incorrectly, so she politely waited for his response. He nodded, speaking in a measured tone. "I'm Hero. I've already told the others in the village I don't want to appear on camera. I just dive. That's all." He shifted his weight, as though bracing himself for an argument. Sarah's heart sank for a moment, but something in his face, a flicker of curiosity, made her think she had a chance. "I'm not here to pry into your private life. I'm interested in documenting the ocean, sharing these pearls with the world, showing viewers how Nature can still thrive in remote places if we let it, she explained softly. I'm not trying to exploit you or your talent. I want to celebrate it. Hero stared past her, gazing at the horizon across the sea. She wondered if he was listening. Then his eyes flicked back to her, searching for sincerity. It's beautiful down there, he finally said. The pearls are only one part of it, but the reefs here, they sing a kind of silent harmony. He looked at his calloused palms, stained with the sea's salt from years of diving. If you promise to protect the secrets of these waters, really protect them, not just reveal them to the entire world, maybe I'll show you something. But I won't have a film crew barging in. Sarah nodded, willing her voice to remain steady. I give you my word. It'll be just me, if that's what you want. She set down her small backpack. I'm not here to break the ocean's trust. I only want to share it in a way that inspires people to appreciate and care for it. He studied her for a few moments longer before stepping aside, allowing her to enter. Inside, the shack was sparse but neat, with wooden shelves lined by old glass jars of sea salt, diving tools, and shells. There was a gentle hush in the air, as though the house itself existed in a constant state of calm, echoing the silence of the deep. Hero offered her a seat at a small table. It was then that Sarah noticed a single dusty picture frame face down on the shelf. But she chose not to pry. They spent much of that afternoon discussing the dangers of the local tides, the currents, and how quickly the weather could turn. Peter's voice was quiet yet brimming with a passion that reminded her of her own. He spoke of how the reefs were gradually suffering from pollution, how the once vibrant corals had begun to pale, though pockets of bright life remained. He described the pearls he found, some as large as a marble and nearly translucent, others softly tinted with pink or champagne gold. Each was unique. Sarah listened with rapt attention, feeling a tug within her that was entirely separate from her professional interest. There was something about Hero's presence, the calm authority of someone who lived in tune with nature, that made her feel grounded in a way she never had before. At the first light of dawn the next day, they set out together for a remote cove sheltered by jagged rocks. Hero guided a small wooden boat through the surf, tacking expertly around concealed outcroppings that threatened to splinter the hull. The air was crisp, tinted pink by the rising sun. Seabirds glided overhead, and Sarah inhaled the salty breeze with exhilaration. This is what she lived for, the promise of something hidden, something true. When they finally dropped anchor, Hero turned to her. The reef below us used to be fuller, he said, handing her a new diving mask. But let me show you the pockets of beauty that remain. Against her better judgment, Sarah felt a stirring in her chest, as though he were offering her more than just a glimpse of aquatic life. Together they slipped into wetsuits and quietly rolled into the water. The sound of the ocean swallowed them immediately. Sarah's heart pounded in her ears, the sudden chill of the sea coursing through her limbs. Slowly, they descended into luminescent green waters. Clusters of coral rose from the sloping seabed. Saltwater currents rippled through Sarah's hair, and she was awestruck by the vibrant fish swirling around them, darting in and out of anemones, swaying like ghostly dancers. She turned to see Hero gracefully twisting through a spiral of fish, each movement controlled and purposeful. He guided her deeper, pointing out a slit in the coral that looked just large enough for them to pass. They squeezed through and emerged into a secluded grotto. Pale shafts of sunlight penetrated this chamber, setting the water aglow with sparkling motes of plankton. Tucked away in the crags of the cave walls were oysters, some partially opened, revealing glimmers of hidden pearls. Sarah carefully brought her camera forward, capturing the mesmerizing scene, but she took her time to watch as well. She understood that Hero wanted her to experience it with her own eyes, not just through a lens. She wondered if this unspoken agreement between them, this respect for nature, was the bribe he needed to let her in. With gentle motions, Hero freed one of the oysters, always taking care to ensure he did not damage its fragile shell. He coaxed out a pearl, a delicate pink orb that shimmered like a sunrise. He placed it in her hand with an encouraging nod. Sarah felt a soft flutter somewhere in her chest, part gratitude, part thrill. When they surfaced, they floated near the boat, breathless and laughing. Hero gave her a faint smile, the warmth in his eyes contradicting his strict, almost forbidding exterior. Later, they returned to the shack, still riding the shared spark of adventure. Sarah made tea from dried hibiscus flowers she'd brought along, and they spoke about the footage she'd captured. She tried to gauge whether he was comfortable with her using it in her documentary. He agreed, but insisted she not reveal the precise location of the grotto. That night, they prepared a simple meal of rice and freshly caught fish. While the wind whipped against the walls, they traded stories. Sarah spoke of her travels from the crowded city to far-flung islands, always chasing glimpses of nature's splendor. Hero recounted how he learned to dive as a child, how he used to follow his father under the waves, trusting only in his lungs. A subtle sadness flickered in his voice every time he mentioned family, and Sarah found herself wishing to know more about his private losses. As the sun rose on the following day, they resumed their underwater quest, exploring more of the hidden terrain. Sarah captured ghostly footage of gracefully gliding manta rays and tall spires of coral. She managed to record shimmering schools of silverfish twisting into mesmerizing shapes as if choreographed. Yet, she was beginning to realize that her documentary wasn't the greatest marvel she'd encounter here. The gentler marvel might be the closeness she felt to this man she'd only just met, a closeness forged by a shared reverence for the silent underwater world they visited each day. On the third day, they tied the boat at one of the calmest corners of the bay. From the surface, Sarah saw only turquoise water and the shadowy impression of a sandy bottom. It seemed barren at first, but once they descended, following Hero's practiced lead, she discovered a realm of sunken boulders adorned with soft corals and pale sponges. It was as if entire columns of living rock had been scraped from the reef's main structure and scattered across the ocean floor. She filmed Hero weaving among tall, pale fronds that brushed his shoulders. Occasionally he stopped to inspect a clamshell or gently nudge away sea snakes, giving them space to pass. Every movement was unhurried, a reflection of the synergy he had with the waters. At one point, Sarah spotted an unusual oyster lodged between two corals. Its shell was darker than the others, almost a sleek obsidian. She lightly motioned for Hero's attention. With expert care, he pried it free, revealing in the faint glimmer of sunlight a rare black pearl. Its nacre glowed with tones of forest green and midnight blue and otherworldly shine. Her heartbeat thundered, and she nearly forgot to capture it on camera. Hero cradled the pearl in his palm with reverence. When they rose above the surface, Sarah couldn't contain her excitement. "That's incredible," she breathed, treading water. "I've only ever heard rumors of pearls that color. You must allow me to document it. It could truly inspire people to care about these reefs." Hero's eyes flickered with caution. He studied the pearl, then he looked at her, noting her unwavering enthusiasm before nodding. "But promise me that you'll show this as a symbol of why it's worth preserving these waters, not as a prize for people to come and claim." Sarah splashed water from her eyes. "I promise," she said. "I want everyone to see the value in protecting the ocean's wonders, not pillaging them." The intensity of that moment awakened an unspoken bond. Perhaps it was the hush of the waves rocking them in the sea's cradle. Perhaps it was the drain of salt water from their lips as they floated, side by side, each supporting the other's heartbeat. By the time they got back to the boat, the air between them seemed charged. As they hoisted themselves on board, his hand lingered on hers just a second longer than necessary. For Sarah, that smallest gesture felt more potent than any confession of love could have at that moment. She was certain he felt it too. Back ashore, Sarah realized her time in the village was wearing thin. Her producers expected progress and might soon send the rest of the crew if she didn't deliver results. Yet the documentary dimensions of her trip felt almost secondary now. She had found something deeper than a mere film subject. In the quiet hush of evening, with the sky bruised purple and orange, Hero offered Sarah a necklace strung with a single small pearl he'd found that day. Satin white and glinting in the candlelight, the pearl was the color of an unspoken feeling. Unnerved by the tenderness of the gesture, Sarah gently laid it against her collarbone and thanked him. They lingered in that moment, the hum of the sea again providing the unspoken language of their bond. Still, Hero's reclusive nature had roots in something she didn't fully understand. Trust between them was new and fragile. Sarah sensed a barrier around him, something unspoken looming under the surface. It was confirmed the night her phone rang and she was forced to step outside to take a call from her producers. They were pushing her for more dramatic footage, perhaps an interview with Hiro speaking openly on camera about his techniques. She didn't want to betray Hiro's trust, but she also felt the pressure of her career. When she returned inside, she found him staring at that picture frame she had seen before, still face down on the shelf. This time he picked it up and gazed at it wearily. She spoke softly. "Hiro, could you tell me about them?" She gestured at the frame, not wanting to invade his privacy, but wishing he might confide in her. He hesitated, fingers tracing the rim of the frame. At last he turned it over. The photo showed a boy and a man standing on a small boat, each grinning from ear to ear. A single massive pearl gleamed between them. "That's me. And that's my father," he said quietly. "He was the reason I started diving. He taught me everything." He exhaled a slow breath, as though the very act of remembering was painful. "Passed away many years ago, an accident at sea. I was also on the boat. I couldn't save him. I kept diving because it's the only way I still feel close to him. The pearls, they feel like his gift to me." Sarah gently reached out, covering his hand with hers. In that moment, words felt inadequate. Her heart twisted, empathizing with the lonely road he had taken. "I'm sorry," she whispered, "but you honor him every time you dive. I can see it." Hero closed his eyes, leaning into her touch, just for an instant. In that moment, she felt him let down a part of his guard. "I think he'd be proud that I'm sharing these pearls with someone who sees their true value, not just the monetary worth, but the wonder of it." Sensing a shift, Sarah chose her next words carefully. "I've been offered a chance to show the real heart of your work, to educate people about how precious this marine life is. The network wants an on-camera interview, but I won't do it unless you say yes. It's your story." His brows drew together. He looked torn. She held her breath, waiting. Finally, he exhaled softly. "If it helps protect the reefs, maybe my father would want that. But I don't want fame. I don't want an invasion. I only want the truth to reach people's." They discussed it late into the night, crafting a plan that would keep their special cove's coordinates secret while still capturing the essence of the story. She would honor his privacy and ensure that the footage remained focused on the ocean and its wonders. They'd record a short, tasteful interview with no dramatic reenactments or intrusive spotlights. It felt like an achievement, but one tinged with tenderness. An arrangement built on something deeper than a film contract. The next morning brought a crisp, clear sky. They journeyed on softly rippling waves toward one of Hiro's favorite pearls beds. He had decided that if they were going to record an interview, it might as well take place in the water he cherished. Once there, with her camera bobbing at the surface, Sarah began asking him questions about how he discovered his passion for diving, what it felt like to hold his breath and explore hidden grottos, and how he chose which pearls to bring to the surface. Hiro, though slightly awkward at first, spoke candidly, finding confidence in the knowledge that he was doing this to help preserve what he loved. His words were raw and honest. He spoke of the ocean as a living tapestry, of the reefs that offered sanctuary to countless species, and of the pearls as symbols of nature's creativity. Her final question hung in the air. What do you hope people learn about the ocean through your pearls? Hero's gaze flickered to Sarah before returning to the camera. I hope they learn that treasures aren't only valuable for profit. They represent life, history, the spirit of the sea. If we lose that, no pearl in the world can replace it. He paused, his voice softening. I also hope they see that the ocean can heal hearts. It healed mine. With that delicate moment captured, Sarah lowered her camera, feeling her own heart pound. She could sense Hero's sincerity radiating off him. A wave of emotion coursed through her. She wanted to embrace him, to assure him that his story would be told respectfully, that his father's memory would live on in the beauty of the reef. Pressing the camera to her side, she gently placed her hand on his cheek, not caring that they were at sea, bobbing in the tide. A silent tear slid down her cheek, mingling with the salt of the sea. Ira's hand came up to cover hers, and in that breath of time, they bridged the barrier that had once stood between them. Neither of them heard the boat's gentle knocking against the reef. They were lost in each other. When their lips finally met, it felt as if the whole ocean had stilled, giving them room to discover one another. Their embrace was tender, the salt water around them echoing the new tide that rushed into both of their hearts. They stayed like that for long seconds before drawing apart, eyes locked in a soft promise. It was enough to know that they had found something real, something worth preserving just as fiercely as their beloved reefs. In the days that followed, Sarah recorded more stunning footage, capturing scenes of coral gardens at sunrise, playful sea lions, and drifting seaweed forests that whispered of hidden realms. Back at Hero's humble shack, she pieced together her documentary's narrative, weaving in his interview, the mystical pearls, and the stark truth about preserving these marine habitats. At times, she would catch him watching her as she edited footage on her laptop in the candlelit evening. There was an unspoken acceptance in his eyes. He trusted her now, not just with the ocean's fragile secrets, but with his own bruised heart. The night before she was set to leave, they walked along the beach, hand in hand, bare feet overshadowed by the looming cliffs. The moonlight spilled onto the waves, turning them silvery. Sarah felt a soft ache in her chest at the thought of returning to her life as a traveling documentarian, uncertain if their bond could weather the distance. She looked at him then, searching for any hint of regret. Hero squeezed her hand. I'm not going anywhere, he said with calm certainty. The sea is my home, but I won't stand in your way. I just hope you'll come back. Her breath caught. Rather than promise what she couldn't be certain of, she said, I will do everything I can to protect this place and tell your story. And if you'll let me, I'll come back, with or without my camera. He smiled at that, a genuine lightness in his eyes. Then I'll count the days. The next morning's departure stung in a way Sarah hadn't anticipated. She'd traveled countless times, filming around the globe, but leaving Hero behind felt as though she was severing a piece of her own heart. He stood by the old dock as her small charter boat began pulling away. She cradled her camera, capturing one last shot of him standing at the water's edge, the salty breeze tossing his hair. His silhouette gradually shrank from view, and she was left with only the open sea before her, an unspoken promise back on that shore. Despite the inevitable separation, Sarah felt a strange, exhilarating relief. She had come seeking pearls of extraordinary beauty, the hidden wonders of the sea. What she found was a man whose quiet devotion to the ocean shone brighter than any gem. She knew her documentary, once edited and presented, would move viewers to look upon the ocean with awe and respect. Still, in her own chest, she carried a treasure that transcended any broadcast or film festival. Long nights ahead would be spent editing footage, sending messages back and forth to Hero, and showing the world not only the jeweled secrets of the deep, but also the soft, undeniable truth of how the ocean can bring two souls together. She had gained more than spectacular underwater clips. She had discovered the tide of her own heart, guided by a reclusive pearl diver whose silent world spoke volumes. And perhaps that was the real gem she had come so far to find, the promise that there, under the waves, waited infinite wonder, and a love that shimmered no matter how far she traveled from the shore.